This is a map of the Democracy Index. The blue countries are the most democratic on the planet. According to the experts surveyed by The Economist, in these countries, people have the most rights and freedoms. What is interesting here is that in the modern realm of democracy in the United States, less than 100 years ago, 10% of the population had to ride separate buses and dine in designated restaurants, and their children to attend special schools. Imagine that an Olympic champion returns home to his homeland, and he is not allowed to go to a restaurant because of his skin color. This is not some kind of fiction, but a real story from the life of the legendary boxer Muhammad Ali. And probably it is no secret to anyone that on the way to their democracy, the United States has gone from slavery and the laws of racial segregation to massive protests for the rights of Afro-Americans. But what is most important is that the Civil War, the modern politics of diversity in movies and TV shows, and even the bowing of the knee before sports matches are very closely related to the struggle for equality and democracy. I will prove to you that there is no talk of any aspiration for justice here, that now, that hundreds of years ago, the world is ruled exclusively by money. And you will see for yourself when you listen to our amazing story. In 2008 in the United States, where segregation according to a racial mark was abolished less than 50 years ago, Barack Obama became the president. And even his opponent in the presidential race, John McCain, congratulating Obama on his victory, noted the color of the Democrat's skin. I congratulate Senator Obama on his victory in the presidential elections of this great country. The fact that an American has become the president demonstrates the great opportunities that it gives to its citizens. What is curious here is that the Obama campaign collected almost $750 million of donations, the largest amount of money ever collected by a candidate for president of a Democratic Party in the history of the country. But not everyone was happy with this victory. In New York and Los Angeles, unknown individuals vandalized cars and buildings with Nazi symbols and the words, "Go back to Africa." Discrimination against the black population in the United States continues to this day. The most well-known event that resonated around the world was the arrest of George Floyd. On May 25, 2020, George Floyd went to a store in Minneapolis and tried to pay off his 20 cents. Store workers suspected that the bill was fake and called the police. Officers detained Floyd and pressed him to the ground, on the ground for 9 minutes. These are very dangerous. The detainees said that he could not breathe, and in the end, just suffocated. The video took over the whole world and caused a wave of mass protests and pogroms under the slogan, "Black Lives Matter." And all summer of 2020, in Minneapolis, New York, Chicago, and other cities of the United States, protesters robbed shops, set fire to cars, and threw stones at the police. The protest wave even reached Europe. Similar protests took place in London, Paris, and Berlin. And athletes around the world stood on one knee in solidarity with this movement. It all ended with Joe Biden signing a law in 2021, on which June 19th received the status of a federal holiday, the Day of Liberation dedicated to the liberation of slaves. And I don't know what gives the appearance of this holiday, but the fact that on this day you can get rid of work a little earlier in combination with the name of the holiday sounds ironic. And here it should be said that finally, after centuries of oppression of Afro-Americans, humanism finally won. After all, if 150 years ago the Civil War was waged for economic reasons, then today we see in the avant-garde the idea of equality and democracy. Ha 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 ha. The U.S. has a popular phrase, "follow the money," which means that in order to understand the true reasons for what is happening, it is necessary to look at the financial flows or at what forms them. In 2020, during the U.S. presidential election race, Donald Trump struggled in every way to increase his electorate. One of these was an attempt to lure Afro-Americans into his camp. In general, they have traditionally supported Democrats in recent decades, who are now promoting the ideas of universal equality and freedom. But Republicans, typical conservatives, do not complain very much, especially Trump, who is often caught up in ambiguous statements.
I'm asking for the vote of every single African American citizen in this country. What do you have to lose? You're living in poverty. Your schools are no good. You have no jobs. 58% of your youth is unemployed. What the hell do you have to lose?
That's why Trump went to trickery, began to actively communicate with Kanye West and appear with him in public everywhere. It's strange that the sharp surge of this friendship was just a pre-election race.
I love this guy right here. Let me give this guy a hug right here. I love this guy right here. Yeah, him in. Yeah.
And during the pandemic, Trump sent the Americans financial aid in the form of checks of $1,200 with their names written on them. And after that, the Afro-Americans began to write in Twitter in gratitude to their bro Trump. For large commercial companies, this whole story is also no more than a matter of profit. There is no concept of well or badly in marketing. The only criterion for success is the sale of a particular product. Therefore, the more scandalous references in the media or looks on the internet, the better. Generally, it is desirable that the maximum wide audience read about the product. And this is why companies, together with bribery, integrate the principles of diversity into their marketing strategy. That is, representatives of race minorities should have equal opportunities and are themselves equal. At the same time with everyone, regardless of common sense. That is why Disney is shooting a remake of The Mermaid with a black actress in the main role, and in Netflix series, British aristocrats are played by African Americans. And there are dozens, if not hundreds, of such examples today. It comes to the point that absolutely inappropriate actors play real people. Well, for example, like in the British miniseries Anna Boleyn. The role of Anna, the second wife of the King of England, Henry VIII, who was white-skinned, is played by the black-skinned actress Jodie Turner-Smith. The second reason for this approach is also hidden in the money, but somewhat on the other hand. Today, thanks to the internet, people can quickly unite and express their discontent with the actions of companies or famous personalities if they seem offensive or discriminatory to them. And if the company does not react to criticism, it can be boycotted, it will lose customers and even partners. And if you are a famous actor or presenter, then a couple of statements in the social network and you are already condemned by a huge number of readers and sponsors in order to keep away from the angry crowd, break contracts with you. Some companies are more successful at this. For example, in 2015, the Airbnb company was accused of refusing African Americans to rent housing more often than others. And after the first noise in social networks, the company quickly published a letter of apology and said that the company corrected its policy. Some companies speculate on the culture of cancellation very successfully. For example, in 2016, American footballer Colin Kaepernick refused to get up under the U.S. anthem at the beginning of the football game, protesting against police violence. He said that he cannot stand during the national anthem, which in his opinion crushes people with a different skin color. The Americans, of course, were outraged by this impudence, and the following year, Kaepernick left his team and in fact buried his career in the league. But then the Nike company appeared with a desire to earn a little on this story. In 2018, the company launched an advertisement with the slogan, "Believe in something, even if it means to sacrifice everything." The background of this phrase was the image of the face of Kaepernick, and such a slogan was designed to emphasize the idea of courage and readiness to fight for one's beliefs, despite possible sacrifices. After the release of such provocative advertising, the owners of social networks called on Nike to boycott and launch the corresponding hashtags. But these mentions were only in the hands of the company. Yes, at first, its shares even fell by a few %, but after a while they grew more than before. In other words, Nike was able to earn without even changing clothes. And the whole point is that there is no bad PR. It either exists and it is being bought, or it does not exist and you cannot promote your products. So when Nike had the opportunity to loudly declare themselves in such a provocative way, they did it. So the fight for the rights of Afro-Americans and the exploitation of the Black agenda are, last but not least, high moral ideals, and first of all, huge money and a cold bill. The key role in the abolition of slavery was played by political and economic benefits, and today companies and politicians use racial prejudices as an instrument of PR and a way to increase their profits. This does not mean that morality here has absolutely no place in life. You just need to understand that with beautiful words and noble gestures, there are often pragmatic business interests. What can I say? One of the funds of the movement, Black Lives Matter, also used generous donations of Americans for their own enrichment and luxurious life, while reliable sponsors believed in slogans in the fight against racial discrimination. Well, perhaps the sponsors have nothing to worry about here, because they partly achieved their goals and improved the lives of several addresses of their donations.
After property records showed Patrice Cullors shelled out millions of dollars on 4 luxury homes, one of them in Los Angeles' exclusive 88% white Topanga Canyon.
No. But seriously, slavery today has no skin color. According to the UN data, in 2016, there were more than 40 million victims of slavery in the world. This is also a forced labor, when migrants from poor countries are often deceived by promises of good work, and then they take documents and force them to work in construction sites or agriculture. This is also the sale of people for the purpose of exploitation, mostly women and children. And all because, despite the progress of technology and automation, human labor is still the most important factor in production, a cheap and very vulnerable factor, because of which, probably, the problem of slavery will continue to exist for more than a century. And we, of course, will someday shoot our own investigation about this. Friends, thank you for watching my content and supporting my work. See you in the next video.